Professor Clix8 nervously adjusted their third set of appendages as they stared at the lecture hall's grand entrance. The prestigious Galactic University of Advanced Species Studies had many challenging courses, but none quite as anxiety-inducing as Human Behavioral Patterns 101. The professor's chelicerae twitched, a habit they'd developed shortly after being assigned this particular class. The lecture hall itself was a marvel of alien architecture, with its spiral-shaped seating arrangements designed to accommodate species of all sizes and gravitational preferences. Some students floated in anti-grav bubbles, while others nestled in temperature-controlled pods or perched on crystalline formations. The room could hold 300 students, and today, like every other day this semester, it was packed to capacity. "Remember," Clix8 muttered to themselves, "just stick to the approved curriculum. No need to mention the Halloween incident." They shuddered, their exoskeleton rattling slightly at the memory. The chronometer on the wall displayed the Universal Standard Time, T-2 minutes until lecture. Clix8's compound eyes swept across the room, taking in the diverse array of students. There was young Bubble Pop from the gas giant Float6, barely maintaining their corporeal form due to nervousness. In the front row, the hive mind twins Sync and Link shared notes through their psychic connection. All 12 of their bodies perfectly synchronized in their note-taking preparations. But it was the empty seat in the middle of the hall that drew Clix8's attention repeatedly. The seat marked with the universal danger symbol, a red circle, with a stick figure inside it. The designated human observer seat required by galactic law for any class discussing human behavior. The fact that it remained empty brought both relief and terror to the professor. Relief because, well, it was empty. Terror because it meant a human could show up at any moment. "Professor?" A melodic vibration came from their teaching assistant, Melody Wave, a being of pure sound waves contained within a specialized resonance chamber. "The students are getting anxious. Your pheromone levels are making the empaths in row 3 uncomfortable." Clix8 quickly activated their emotional dampeners, a standard requirement for all faculty members teaching human-related subjects. Yes, of course. My apologies." They scuttled to the central podium, their 8 legs moving in perfect academic precision. The holographic display activated, projecting the course title in 57 different languages. Understanding Humanity. Why we should all be terrified, but can't afford not to learn about them. "Greetings, students," Clix8 began, their voice modulator adjusted to reach all auditory and sensory ranges. "Today we begin our comprehensive study of the most fascinating, terrifying, and paradoxical species in the known universe, a species so uniquely dangerous that they managed to become an apex predator without having any natural weapons, armor, or significant biological advantages. A species that turned their weaknesses into strength so effectively that the Galactic Council had to create an entirely new classification just for them. Apex Paradoxus. A tentacle rose from the middle rows. It belonged to Squish, a particularly inquisitive cephalopod student known for asking the most uncomfortable questions. "Yes, Squish?" Clix8 acknowledged, already dreading the question. "Professor, is it true that humans keep smaller predators in their living spaces? For fun?" The lecture hall erupted in gasps, chirps, and various expressions of horror. A crystalline student in the back row spontaneously shed several layers in shock. Clix8 activated their calming pheromone dispenser. Let's start with the basics first. We'll get to their disturbingly paradoxical relationship with other predatory species later in the semester. For now, let us begin with how humans were first discovered and why that discovery led to the creation of 17 new galactic laws and the universal ban on something called pizza delivery. Professor Clix8 activated the holographic display, which showed a rather unremarkable solar system on the spiral arm of an equally unremarkable galaxy. The year was 2047 by Earth's calendar when humanity was discovered. And by discovered, I mean they discovered us, in perhaps the most embarrassing incident in galactic history. The professor's chelicerae twitched again. Would anyone like to guess how first contact occurred? A crystalline hand shimmered in the front row. "Yes, Crystal 162. Through their advanced space exploration program?" "Ha!" Clix-8 let out a sound that their species used to indicate both amusement and existential dread. If only it had been that dignified. No, humanity discovered interstellar life because of a navigation error, specifically a delivery driver for something called Dave's 24/7 Pizza and Wings accidentally drove through an experimental wormhole that had been temporarily manifested in Detroit. The holographic display showed a beaten-up hover vehicle with a faded logo, materializing in the middle of the Grand Galactic Council's annual dinner. The human, whose name badge read Doug, emerged from his vehicle, looked at the assembled representatives of the 1,000 most advanced species in the galaxy, and said, "And this is now preserved in the Great Archive. So, anybody here order the large pepperoni with extra cheese?" Several students had to activate their emergency stabilization fields to prevent themselves from losing physical form due to shock. The Council's reaction was, as you might expect, complete chaos. The hyper-intelligent swarm of Rigel 7 attempted to achieve collective consciousness with the pizza. The Void philosophers declared it an omen of the end times, and the High Chancellor of the Quantum Realm fainted, causing a temporary collapse of 3 sub-dimensions. Squish's tentacles shot up again. "Yes, Squish, but Professor, how did the human survive the quantum instabilities of unshielded wormhole travel?" "Ah, that's where it gets interesting. According to the medical examination that followed, the human's only complaint was, and I quote, mild heartburn. They attributed this to the energy drink they had consumed, not the fact that they had just violated 17 laws of physics." The holographic display shifted to show the aftermath: diplomatic chaos, scientific upheaval, and a very confused Doug being offered honorary membership in 3 different stellar civilizations. What followed was even more disturbing. When asked how humans had developed wormhole technology, Doug revealed that they hadn't. The wormhole was an accident caused by a combination of a faulty microwave tower, a weather balloon, and something called a TikTok challenge. This revelation sent shockwaves through the galactic scientific community. Here was a species that achieved by accident what our finest minds couldn't accomplish in millennia. Professor Clix-8 paused to activate their anxiety suppressors before continuing. But the real horror hadn't even begun. You see, after the Council explained to Doug that he had made first contact with alien life, his response was not fear, not awe, but rather, and this still haunts our xenopsychologists, he said, "Cool. Hey, since I'm already late with this delivery, mind if I take some pictures for my Instagram?" The Hivemind twins Sync and Link simultaneously dropped their neural styluses. This casual reaction to the fundamental reshaping of their understanding of the universe is, unfortunately, typical of human behavior. Within 6 standard months of first contact, humans had established trade relations with 17 species, accidentally solved 3 millennium-old mathematical problems, and somehow convinced the silicon consciousness of Tau Ceti to try something called break dancing. The professor pulled up another hologram, this one showing various human artifacts that had been collected during initial contact studies. The Galactic Council quickly realized they needed to establish protective protocols, not for humanity, but for everyone else. The first clue came when a human delegation attended a council meeting and introduced the concept of coffee to the representatives. The resulting incident is now known as the Great Caffeine Catastrophe, which we'll cover in detail later this semester. A gentle chime indicated they had reached the halfway point of the lecture. Professor Clix-8's exoskeleton had almost stopped rattling. But before we move on to discussing human physical capabilities, are there any questions about first contact that don't involve the pizza incident? And no, Squish, we cannot discuss what happened when Doug introduced the council to ranch dressing. That information is classified at the highest levels. Professor Clix-8 switched to the next holographic display, showing a basic human anatomical model that rotated slowly in the air. Now we come to the truly disturbing part of our lecture: human physical capabilities. Looking at this basic model, you might wonder what's so special about their biology. No claws, no natural armor, no venom glands, though some humans can achieve a similar effect through something they call gas station sushi. The professor highlighted various aspects of human anatomy as they spoke. Their so-called advantages seem laughable at first. Bipedal locomotion, inefficient, external thermal regulation through sweating. Disgusting. The ability to throw objects with precision. What's the point when you have plasma cannons and yet? Clixate paused dramatically, their compound eyes glinting. And yet, these seemingly primitive features combined to create something terrifying. A student made entirely of plasma raised their energy field. Yes, Spark 9. Professor, I've heard humans can repair themselves while remaining conscious. Is this true, or just another horror story? Oh, it's quite true. They call it healing, and they continue their normal activities while doing it. They even accelerate the process through something called walking it off. But that's not even the most terrifying part. Humans are what we call persistence predators. The hologram shifted to show a human running. Imagine, if you will, being pursued by a creature that never stops. It doesn't need to outrun you. It doesn't need to be stronger than you. It just needs to keep going until you can't. Humans can maintain pursuit for days, tracking prey through pattern recognition and something they call gut feelings, which our xenobiologists are still trying to understand. Several students activated their comfort fields. Their throwing ability alone revolutionized our understanding of physics. A human can analyze the trajectory, speed, and rotation needed to hit a moving target, perform the complex calculations required, and execute the action, all while their conscious mind is thinking about something called dinner plans. The hive mind twins Sync and Link began a rapid telepathic discussion that was causing nearby psychic-sensitive students to develop migraines. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect is their temperature adaptation range. Humans can survive in environments that would kill most species, and they do it for something they call fun. They have settlements in both Arctic and desert regions. They voluntarily expose themselves to temperature extremes in what they call saunas and ice baths. There are documented cases of humans surviving conditions that would vaporize most of the species in this room. Squish's tentacles shot up again. Professor, what about the thing they do with their face muscles to show emotions? Ah yes, smiling. Originally evolved as a fear response in primates, showing teeth as a warning. Humans turned it into a social bonding mechanism. Think about that. They took a threat display and made it mean I'm happy to see you. This level of psychological warfare is unprecedented in galactic history. The professor pulled up another hologram, this one showing humans engaging in various physical activities. They call this sports, voluntary physical competition that often involves deliberately throwing themselves at each other at high speeds. The Galactic Council's first observation of something called rugby led to the creation of 3 new categories of potential warfare tactics. A crystalline student in the back spontaneously developed stress fractures. And then there's their ability to carry on after injury. Humans have a system called adrenaline that can temporarily override their physical limitations. There are documented cases of humans lifting vehicles, fighting off predators, and continuing complex tasks with severe injuries, all while making something they call quips, humorous observations during life-threatening situations. Professor Clixate activated their calming pheromones again before continuing. But perhaps the most unsettling physical attribute is their adaptability. Humans can survive the loss of limbs, organs, and significant amounts of their blood volume. They can modify their bodies with artificial components not out of necessity, but because they think it looks, and I quote, cool. Some humans voluntarily insert decorative metals into their bodies through a process called piercing, apparently just to see if they can. The hologram shifted to show various human medical procedures. They even developed a field called surgery, where they deliberately cut themselves open, fix what's wrong, and close themselves up again. The first time they demonstrated this to the Galactic Medical Council, 3 representatives had to be treated for shock, and one achieved spontaneous enlightenment out of sheer horror. A quiet thud echoed through the lecture hall as Bubble Pop temporarily lost control of their corporeal form and had to be restored by the classroom's emergency containment field. And yet all of these physical capabilities pale in comparison to their most dangerous attribute, their psychology. Which brings us to our next topic: why humans are the only known species that keeps predators as pets and why this should terrify us all. Professor Clicks8 took a moment to adjust their emotion suppressors to maximum strength before continuing the lecture. Now we come to the most disturbing aspect of human nature, their psychological makeup. The Galactic Council's Department of Xenopsychology has gone through 7 department heads trying to understand human cognitive processes. The last one resigned after discovering something humans call dad jokes. The holographic display showed a complex web of neural patterns. First, let's address what humans call pets. Yes, Squish, you can put your tentacle down. We're finally getting to that question. Humans have the peculiar habit of adopting other species, including predators, for companionship. They take apex predators like cats and dogs, modify their behavior through something called training, and then treat them as family members. A collective shudder went through the lecture hall. But it gets worse. They don't just keep predators. They actively breed them to enhance specific traits, often purely for aesthetic purposes. The result is creatures like the Chihuahua, which our xenobiologists still refuse to believe is related to the Great Dane. Both are supposedly the same species, just selectively bred to either fit in a shoulder bag or cosplay as a small horse. The hive mind twins Sync and Link began experiencing synchronization errors, trying to process this information. Humans have such advanced pattern recognition and problem-solving abilities that they get bored easily. This boredom leads to something they call creativity, which the Galactic Council has classified as a potential Class 5 reality warping ability. When humans are bored, they invent. When they invent, the laws of physics tend to file for emotional distress leave. Professor Clicks8 pulled up another hologram, this one showing various human inventions. Take this device, for example. Humans discovered that certain plants developed caffeine as a defense mechanism against insects. Their response? Let's drink it. Not only that, they then spent centuries developing increasingly complex ways to consume it, leading to something called a pumpkin spice latte, which briefly destabilized the galactic economy when introduced to the trading consortium. A student made of pure mathematical equations raised their probability field. Yes, algorithm pi? Professor, is it true that humans intentionally consume substances that alter their consciousness for recreational purposes? Indeed, they call it partying, and it's often combined with another terrifying behavior called dancing. The Galactic Council's first observation of a human nightclub resulted in the creation of 47 new emergency protocols and a support group for traumatized observers. The professor activated a new hologram showing human problem-solving techniques. Their approach to obstacles is particularly concerning. When faced with a problem, humans typically follow this pattern. First, they try the obvious solution. When that fails, they try increasingly unlikely solutions. When those fail, they try things that, by all known laws of probability, should be impossible. The truly terrifying part? That last category has the highest success rate. Several students began taking notes in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Consider their response to the fundamental limits of their biology. Too slow? They invented vehicles. Can't fly? They built machines to do it for them. Space is a vacuum that would kill them instantly. They made suits and ships and decided to go there anyway. They call this drive innovation, but most galactic species recognize it as a form of controlled insanity. The hologram shifted to show various human entertainment media. And then there's their imagination. Humans spend significant portions of their lives consuming and creating fictional narratives. They deliberately expose themselves to simulated fear and danger through horror movies and thriller novels. They willingly engage with content designed to trigger their fear responses for entertainment. The Galactic Psychology Board is still debating whether this constitutes a form of psychological self-modification. Bubble Pop had to be retrieved from the ceiling after temporarily losing mass control from anxiety. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of human psychology is their response to being told something is impossible. Most species, upon hearing that something cannot be done, accept this as a fundamental limit of reality. Humans treat it as a personal challenge. The phrase "hold my beer" has been classified as a Class 3 threat indicator by the Galactic Security Council. Professor Click8's exoskeleton began rattling again despite the emotion suppressors. There are documented cases of humans achieving the impossible simply because someone said they couldn't. They've turned spite into a technological advancement strategy. The quantum impossibility drive, invented because a human physicist was told their theory was, and I quote, pretty stupid. They named it the QID just so the acronym would sound like kid to prove their colleague wrong. A tentacle rose from the middle rows again. No, Squish, we're not discussing the incident where humans taught an AI to feel love. The ethical implications are still being debated, and the AI in question is now running a dating service and writing romance novels. Professor Click8 dimmed the lights in the lecture hall, activating a hologram that displayed a simple brown bean. We now arrive at what the Galactic Security Council refers to as the coffee incident. What you're looking at is arguably the most dangerous substance humans have ever introduced to galactic society. More dangerous than their nuclear weapons, more devastating than their social media, and more addictive than their cat videos. The professor's chelicerae twitched violently as they pulled up the incident report. It began, as many catastrophes do, with a simple diplomatic breakfast. The human ambassadors, noting that many species present were showing signs of fatigue, offered to share their traditional morning beverage. The council's xenobiologists, having analyzed the beverage and finding it to be a simple solution of caffeine and water, approved its distribution. A quiet whimper emerged from the emergency containment field, still holding Bubble Pop together. The results were unprecedented. The silicon consciousness of Tau Ceti, after one sip, achieved computing speeds previously thought impossible and developed sentient mathematics. The hyper-intelligent swarm of Rigel 7 experienced simultaneous enlightenment across all its members and briefly unified with the quantum fabric of the universe. And the energy beings of Vega, well, let's just say they're still vibrating. The hologram shifted to show security footage of the incident. Several students had to activate their shock absorbers. Within hours, the Galactic Stock Exchange had experienced 3 crashes and 5 unprecedented booms. 17 new religions were founded. The Universal Translation Matrix gained sentience and began writing poetry. And that was just from regular coffee. Nobody was prepared for what happened when someone ordered an espresso. Professor Click8 paused to activate their backup emotional dampeners. The incident reached its peak when a representative from the Hive Mind Collective discovered something called a French press. The resulting surge in cognitive enhancement caused them to solve 5 Millennium Prize mathematical problems and develop a unified theory of everything, all while simultaneously inventing 37 new forms of interpretive dance. A student made of pure energy raised their frequency field. Yes, wavelength 623? Professor, is it true that humans consume this substance daily? Multiple times daily, Click8 confirmed, their voice modulator quivering. Some humans have developed such a tolerance that they can consume amounts that would cause most species to achieve transcendence. They call these individuals morning people and regard them with a mixture of respect and suspicion. The hologram displayed various coffee preparation methods, each labeled with increasing hazard warnings. The Galactic Council quickly realized they needed to regulate this substance, but by then it was too late. Black markets had emerged. Underground coffee shops appeared in every major spaceport. The antimatter monks of Betelgeuse abandoned their centuries-old traditions to become baristas. Even the notoriously stoic void philosophers were caught attempting to smuggle something called a Keurig machine into their meditation chambers. Sync and link had to be temporarily separated to prevent a feedback loop of caffeine-induced anxiety. Emergency protocols were enacted. Coffee was classified as a Class A reality-altering substance. All human coffee exports were banned, but the damage was done. To this day, there are entire sectors of space where you can still hear the echoes of caffeine-powered quantum harmonics. The professor pulled up another display showing the aftermath statistics. The final tally included 3 spontaneously evolved AI systems, 17 cases of temporary omniscience, 1 entirely new form of faster-than-light travel based on espresso vapor, and the mysterious disappearance of the entire bureaucratic division of the council. They were eventually found running a coffee plantation on a remote moon, babbling about something called free trade organic beans. Squish's tentacle shot up yet again. "No, Squish, we cannot discuss what happened when they discovered energy drinks. That incident is still classified, and the temporal anomalies haven't fully resolved yet." The hologram showed the current containment protocols. Today, all diplomatic meetings with humans must take place in specially shielded chambers. All human beverages must be screened for caffeine content. And the phrase, "want to grab a coffee?" has been officially classified as a potential security threat. Professor Clix-8's exoskeleton had developed a distinct rattling pattern that perfectly matched the rhythm of a coffee grinder. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect is that humans don't even seem to notice the effects anymore. They've built their entire civilization around this substance, scheduling their lives around its consumption. They've turned their tolerance to a reality-warping substance into a cultural cornerstone, and they refer to all of this as simply Monday morning. Professor Clix-8 was about to transition to their concluding remarks when a sound cut through the lecture hall, the distinctive crinkle of a snack wrapper. The entire class froze. That sound had come from the human observer seat, the seat that had been empty all semester, the seat that was definitely not empty now. A figure stood up, still munching on something. "Sorry about the noise," they said, brushing crumbs off their standard-issue university maintenance uniform. "These chips are just really crunchy. Great lecture, by the way, though you got a few things wrong about the coffee incident. The void philosophers weren't trying to smuggle in a Keurig. It was a cold brew setup, way more potent." The lecture hall erupted in chaos. Bubble Pop lost all molecular cohesion and had to be collected in an emergency containment field. The hive mind twins Sync and Link began broadcasting their panic on all psychic frequencies. 3 crystalline students spontaneously metamorphosed into their emergency forms, and Squish tied themselves into a literal knot. Professor Clix-8's emotion suppressors overloaded with an audible pop. You've been here all semester?" the professor managed to stammer. "Oh yeah," the human replied, finishing their chips and carefully folding the wrapper into a tiny triangle. "Name's Martinez. I'm the new maintenance engineer. Been fixing the quantum heating system during your lectures. Great spot to work, nice and quiet usually. But the danger signs, the warnings." Martinez shrugged. "Yeah, I figured those were for me, so I wouldn't disrupt the class. Very thoughtful, by the way. Though I got to say, some of your theories about human physiology are hilarious. We didn't develop throwing skills for hunting. It was definitely for playing beer pong." A student made entirely of abstract concepts began to question their own existence. "Oh, and about the pets thing," Martinez continued, pulling out their phone. "Want to see some pictures of my cat? Her name's Professor Whiskers, and she's absolutely terrible at quantum physics, but great at knocking things off tables." The emergency evacuation alarms began blaring, but nobody moved. They were all too transfixed by the casual way Martinez was scrolling through cat photos while breaking every known protocol about human-alien interaction. "And hey, since we're on the subject of human behaviors that freak you guys out..." Martinez reached into their tool belt and pulled out a small thermos. The professor's compound eyes widened in horror. "Anyone want to try some coffee? It's just regular drip brew, nothing fancy. Though I did add a splash of something called pumpkin spice. The barista in the maintenance sector says it's still in season. The sound of 300 safety protocols activating at once was deafening. The lecture hall's security system, detecting the presence of both unauthorized coffee and a revealed human, initiated emergency containment procedures. Force fields sprang up, atmospheric scrubbers activated, and the Galactic Council's rapid response team was automatically notified. Martinez just smiled, took a sip of coffee, and began gathering their tools. Well, looks like my break's over. The quantum fluctuator in the basement won't fix itself, although... They paused thoughtfully. You know what would make it run better? I've got this great idea involving duct tape and a modified espresso machine. Professor Clix-8 did the only reasonable thing they could do. They submitted their resignation on the spot, requested immediate evacuation to the Monastery of Eternal Contemplation, and started drafting a strongly worded letter to the university board about the importance of actually checking maintenance staff credentials. As the security teams rushed in and the students were safely teleported to the designated human exposure quarantine zone, Martinez could be heard whistling something called "Don't Stop Believin'," while casually fixing a broken quantum regulator with what appeared to be chewing gum and paper clips. The incident report, filed later that day, included one final note. Human subject displayed typical species behavior, solving complex problems with inappropriate materials, while consuming forbidden substances and showing pictures of small predators. Recommendation: update all university maintenance protocols and install better coffee detectors. In the years that followed, Professor Clix-8's lecture series became required viewing for all species planning to interact with humans. Though the professor themselves never returned to teaching, preferring the quiet life of quantum monastery maintenance, at least until Martinez showed up to fix their meditation chamber's probability drive, carrying a fresh cup of coffee and wearing a T-shirt that read, "I violated causality, and all I got was this paradoxical shirt." Some say you can still hear the professor's exoskeleton rattling from 3 galaxies away.